Hello, everybody. I'm Helen. I'm standing in for Laurie today as she's not feeling so great. And today is our 100th Connect and Share. So that's amazing, and congratulations to Laurie for really driving us forward and, you know, showing up every week to bring us these amazing Connect and Shares and having them available for all the people afterwards who might be out there in the field braving the elements and doing all the hard work out there. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we stand on. I'm in Bidjigal and Gadigal land here, and I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners and pay my respects to their leaders past, present and emerging. We're going to hand over shortly to Olivia Perry from HR Assured, and she's going to talk to us about HR and employment relations for businesses and organisations. But before we do that, I'm going to go through some of the things that have been going on in the outdoors world this week. So I'll just share my screen. There we go. Whoops, I'll just put it on present first. That would help. Hang on a sec, everyone. This is my first time presenting on Canva. It's a whole different format, but we'll get there. Now, there we go. Can you guys see the whole screen or just the, it's all good? Great.
Looks great.
Fantastic. So firstly, we'll look at the grants that are out there at the moment. So as most of you would have already heard, the applications have now opened to apply for the Mox Grants that Laurie has worked tirelessly to make available for us. And their payments for last November and December when weren't able to run overnight camps. And you have to have 50% of your business related to delivering to schools to qualify for the grants. But have a look through Service New South Wales and see all about it and whether your business is eligible to apply. The next thing, another grant that's also available that I might as well just put out there is one for the Heart Foundation, and they're giving away $10,000 grants for innovative projects in the community that address particular issues in relation to things that might affect heart health. So if you go to the Heart Foundation website, I'm sure Laurie will put the link in the chat, and we can just have a look, and you can apply for a $10,000 grant, which would be amazing. So the new membership structure for Outdoors New South Wales and ACT comes into place on the 1st of July this year. So if you can see there what the old structure, and if you've already paid up before the 1st of July within the old structure, then you just continue on with that until your membership comes up for the next year. But if next time you apply for membership, or if you're a new business if you're a business looking to become a member, after the 1st of July, you'd start with a new structure. So for individuals, it's $125. For sole traders and public schools, it's gone up to $350. And just to, I guess, bring some awareness that the money that you can see there in the old structure hasn't changed for 4 years. So, you know, it was definitely due for a price rise, and it's definitely changed so that it's more accessible to more people. And it's, you know, obviously for larger organisations, it's more more costly. But if you get in before the 1st of July and you're not a member yet, you'll get the old fee structure and you'll become a member. So go for it. Let's go to the next slide. So what else have we got? We've got some other promotion opportunities available at the moment. The new website has had some updates recently, and it looks a lot better and it's a lot easier to navigate. There are still a few things that we're working on in the background, so please be patient and just, we'll get there. But now we've got the functions. One is to list your business and another is to list your event. So if you can see the tab there that says list business, I'll just, I'll go into that on my screen. Actually, I think that's going to be a bit difficult right now, but there's list business and list event. And when you list your event, that goes into a portal where they'll all be shown in date order, and you can see what other events there are in the industry coming up. And you can also obviously promote your event through the Outdoors New South Wales and ACT website, which is a great function for members. I'll just go back to present mode. Here we go. No, I'm not quite as smooth as Laurie, but we'll get there. Another great thing that's being given away, and it was spoken about last week in Connect and Share, is Navi is giving away $3 million in digital support for small businesses. So if you click on that QR code there, it gives you up to 12 months of support and coaching to 500 small businesses. And it's sort of, you'll get onto their coaching program, which I believe is an hour every couple of weeks, to talk through how to engage in the digital environment, which is a really great asset for marketing your business or organisation. Then there's also this 30-day tourism reboot package. And each day they're emailing you some tasks with some instructions. And so it's a really experiential way to learn how to better market your business and get it up to speed to get out there to more customers. So again, have a look at that QR code and see what's available for that program. Free program, should I repeat? Okay, some events that are coming up in the next. The events. There's one event that if you're in the Sydney area or Greater Sydney region, don't miss it. It's the FOC, the Festival of Canoe and Kayak, down in what's that place called? In the Southern Highlands, Kangaroo Valley, that's it. So go down there this weekend. It starts today. That's right, starts today, and head down there and have some fun on the water. But if you look it up you'll have to look up thefoc.com.au and pack your bags and get going. It'll be tons of fun. The upcoming Connect and Shares, this week we've got employment law with Olivia. Next week there's injury law, specifically looking at the TAP case. Then on the 8th of the 7th, we've got the Office of the Children's Guardian and looking into their risk tool to assess risk of harm to young people out on programs, and steps that you can put in place in your organisation to minimise the risk. And the following week, the 15th of the 7th, will be an amazing one, looking at with some people from New Zealand tuning in to tell us about their challenges in the industry, and how we can share knowledge and information to better our industry and not repeat the same mistakes on either side of the ditch. But right now, we're going to hand over to Olivia Perry from HR Assured, and she's a workplace relations consultant, and she's going to give us some really in-depth HR and employment relations advice. So over to you, Olivia.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all that. I'm now going to share my screen. So let's see how this one goes. I'm also not incredible at these sometimes. Alrighty. Let me know if anyone's not able to see that, but otherwise I'll jump straight in. So yes, as mentioned, my name is Olivia Perry. I am a workplace relations consultant with HR Assured. Essentially my role, I work pretty closely within the telephone advisory service, and we work across Australia and New Zealand, basically assisting all of our clients in numerous different areas and industries with any of their HR or employment law, or even sometimes their work health and safety concerns. We run audits on their companies, as well as asking any questions they may have through the phone line, and I'll run through a few different of our branches as well. So this is our FCB family. HR Assured is a part of that family. It's under the umbrella of FCB, but this is just a bit of an insight into what FCB is and the different branches that we have. So we have FCB Workplace Law, which deal with a lot of obviously our legal side of things, our law sort of areas, so potentially fair work claims, all of those sort of pieces. We have Smart Visa, looks into our immigration portions in relation to HR, and they assist, again, clients in that industries as well. HR Assured, as I said, which is the part of the team that I am a part of, we conduct audits with different clients as they are onboarded, and again, part of that telephone advisory service that I'm part of. If you have any concerns or any issues essentially within your business, they give us a call and we assist with that. Enable HR is our cloud system. So essentially, if you're a part of the business, you will be able to log into our Enable HR cloud system. You'll have access to templates, guides, contracts, policies, procedures, all those little fun best practice HR things that you need. And then we have our certification services of QMS as well. So just a little bit about that FCB family umbrella there. So this is more HR Assured and what we offer. So I have sort of run into it a little bit, but as I sort of mentioned, we've got that comprehensive HR audit. So we will go through your company, see if there's any compliance issues, and also action any best practice pieces that we feel your company might need. Again, legal resources within our cloud services, policies and procedures, work health and safety. And that 24/7 access to telephone advisory services as well, which is really handy for a lot of our services across, again, Australia and New Zealand, because some people may be shift workers, some people might be, in Western Australia, something along those lines, where you do need that 24/7 access in case something goes wrong or you have any questions. So really helpful for those clients that are a part of that as well, to have that advisory service whenever they do need it. So jumping into the rest of it now, we're going to go through essentially a lot of our simple steps and the sort of broad range of employment law and HR compliance. So a few of those will be all the modern awards. We do have quite a few in Australia and they can be quite complex, but I'm going to go through the basics of them and how to sort of assist with that compliance by starting off of it. We'll then go through the employment law, the employment types, so the types of different employees that you can have. Casual conversions, contracts and policies and best procedures for those. Performance and disciplinary, that'll be pretty broad. So there will be a lot of complexities with that we probably won't go through, but I will go through the basics of performance and disciplinary. And then we'll run into the legal compliance part of general protections and unfair dismissals. So the modern awards. what is a modern award? As I said, there's quite a lot of them. There's about 120 plus or so in Australia, and New Zealand are implementing some through as well, just for interest piece. But essentially the modern awards are looked after by the Fair Work Ombudsman, and they are still monitored through the Fair Work Act also. There's also on top of that what we call the National Employment Standards as well. So that is separate to all of the Fair Work modern awards. The National Employment Standards, to go into that, there are essentially 11 pieces to that National Employment Standards, and that applies to every single worker within Australia, no matter your industry. And essentially they go through the entitlements and general standards for employees. So they might go through maternity leave, basic allowances like leave and sick leave, and there's quite a lot of complexities within those 11 that you can go through as well. Essentially does sort of look at breaks, although that can change by the award. But again, just kind of covers those broad 11, which sits under all of the employees within Australia. So looking at the awards, again, there's 120 plus of them. Can be quite difficult to know which award you sit under. So that would be something that HR Assured would go through within your audit if you were a part of our pieces. But if you did want to go through and look through the awards to see what you might sit under, essentially you would be looking under majority of the awards, clause 4 of the awards, which is the coverage piece. So with coverage, it would explain what industries and what roles would generally sit under each award. So for example, if we're looking at the nurses award, it would encompass what sort of pieces of the nursing industry would sit under the award. And like I said, it can be quite complex. So for example, if we're looking at 2 different awards, we might be looking at a psychologist who would sit under the health professionals award and support services award, sorry. But then if you have a nurse within the same practice, they would be sitting under the nurses award. So again, that's where you'd look at that coverage piece, and you might have to look at a few different awards to sort of determine which award your industry would sit under. So just because there might be the umbrella industry award, it doesn't mean that that role would specifically sit under there. Another complexity which we like to go through with that as well is, again, using the psychologist sort of practice piece. You might have a psychologist who again is under that health professionals award, but then you might have an admin employee who would then sit under the clerk's clerical award. So again, looking at that coverage, it would explain under that clause 4 what sort of industry you're looking at for that. Going a bit into the correct classification and coverage, which again is a piece people can find quite complex. Generally speaking, most awards will have under Schedule A of the award, classifications as to what role and coverage they would sit under. So generally speaking, there'll be different levels. So again, looking at the Health Professionals Award, for example, a level 3 would generally be a dental assistant who's qualified, and it will list those and go through the complexities of them as well. If we're looking at more construction, for example, it would be linked to the amount of experience or the amount of qualifications you have within that industry. So something to think about with those awards is there's a lot there. And that doesn't mean that's the only thing in the awards. There's also breaks complexities, entitlements, such as allowances. There's quite a bit in there in terms of shift work, all those sort of things. So quite a lot in there, and we can break it down for you a little bit more, again, if you're a part of one of our clients and we went through an audit with you, and you'd be able to use that telephone advisory line. So employment types. Employment types is another thing that is listed within each award, but essentially there's 3 main types of employment. So you'd be looking at casual, part-time and full-time, and there's different complexities for all 3 of those. Part-time and full-time permanent employees do have very similar entitlements, but I will run through a little bit more. And then casual has slightly different entitlements. So as you might be aware, casuals have a little bit more flexibility in terms of their roster. However, because of that and the fact that they also don't receive any sick leave or annual leave entitlements, they do receive a 25% loading on top of the minimum standard. So if you had a part-time or full-time employee on $20 an hour, for example, you would increase that by 25% if you were hiring a casual in that same role. You also do have fixed term and maximum term employees that you might sit them under. And that might just mean that you've got a project piece, for example. So you'd hire a fixed term contractor who maybe does 3 months of work while that project's going. You can extend that, but that would be the purpose of the fixed term contract. Moving on to independent contractors, slightly different to employees, and there's a lot of complexities in the comparison between the two. Generally speaking, contractors will have their own ABN. They will have a lot of flexibility in terms of their hours and days. They would be invoicing as you go along. And a lot of different complexities in terms of that, which the ATO will look into also when you are hiring contractors. A little piece on contractors, which has changed, is you generally can be dependent. Generally speaking, you will need to pay super on contractors now, which has been a bit of a change. So just something to be aware of also with that. So going into casual conversion. So this just relates to casuals with this. And keeping in mind with casual conversion as well, it does only relate to employers which have 15 employees or more. So when we're thinking of 15 employees or more, it does mean in the entire entity. So if you have a business that has a few different locations, you might have one in Sydney and Melbourne, it's not 15 employees in just your Sydney office, it would be within your entity of your business name. So something to think about if you are sort of at that 14 employees now, something to think about as you're sort of getting into that 15 employees, or if you are in that area of more than 15. But essentially, there's a few different elements for casual conversion. If you have casuals within your team, if they have been employed with you for more than 12 months, and if over a 6-month period, they've worked very regular and consistent hours within their roster, then you will need to offer them casual conversion, which means they can convert to a permanent employee. It's their decision and their discretion as to whether they do transfer over. They might really prefer to be a casual. They do get that 25% increase, so they have that advantage of a higher wage, but they may prefer to convert over to have sick leave entitlements and annual leave entitlements. The employee can also request to go permanent throughout any of that period of time, if that is prior to the 12 months, or they don't meet any of those consistent and regular hours, or you're not a business over 15 employees, you can reject that, but you would have to go through a process of determining, whether that's the best business fit as well. So that is casual conversion. Looking into employment contracts. A lot of the questions we get are, do I really need to have employment contracts in place? I understand they're obviously quite complex and they are difficult to have in place for some businesses. Essentially, there isn't a legal requirement to do so. However, it is definitely best practice to have something in there. It really does protect the employee as well as the employer to have the contractual obligations listed. With employment contracts, a lot of the stuff is protected if you're under a modern award or dictated by the modern award as well. So again, if you're in a construction award, your breaks and details would be quite influenced by the award anyway. But it is still good to have employment contracts in place in terms of potential breaches of performance management or confidentiality, intellectual property rights. Those are things that really does protect the employer in these instances that you've got something in writing and something signed and appreciated by the employee. So it really does sort of help on both sides as well to have something there. It's always better to have something in writing and in record in legal areas. So that's sort of why we always like to have that best practice employment contract in place. So again, I've sort of touched on it, but here's the 10 reasons why to have an employment contract in place. One of the big ones I was going to go through is an annualized salary. So you can pay your employees either by the hour or an annualized salary. So it might be, 60,000 for the year. And it is really important to have a contract in place which details if you're having an annualized salary, because it would explain that you would have clauses within the contracts which allow for entitlements and allowances to be included within that annualized 60,000, for example. It really does go through the duties and expectations of the employees as well, which a position description would also do also. So I think it's very important to have a position description alongside your contract when you do start an employee. A good reason to have a position description is it quite clearly outlines to the employee your expectations of them. And if they're not meeting those standards, it means you can really link back to that position description and explain, you know, you aren't meeting X, Y, and Z of your position. We need you to bring up to that standard, and it's a lot easier to performance manage in that process. We also go through risk mitigation as well. So if you are needing to go through determination, contracts in place really do assist with that, and assist with the process of misconduct if you are in that industry and are really needing assistance to terminate with misconduct. Employment contracts do really protect you in that instance also. Policies are a fun one. There's quite a lot out there. I think some really important ones to have are an employee handbook or a code of conduct. Otherwise, there's quite a few out there in terms of work health and safety ones, you know, potential motor vehicle ones, all those different complexities. So it is really important, and very much like the employment contracts, the reasons for having them and the really important reasons to have them are really that you've got a record and a signature and an agreement between the employer and the employee of their expectations, of their duties, of things that you might need to mitigate risk for eventually if you do need to terminate or if you do need to performance manage. It just means that from the get-go and from the initial process, you've got all of that agreed to, and you've got all of that, you know, agreed to on both parties essentially. It also does help with legal compliance as well. If you need to performance manage someone for potential bullying and harassment, or, you know, a breach of code of conduct, those sort of pieces, it does help to have that on record and to have all of that there if you are going through a potential unfair dismissal claim or a general protections claim. Really handy to have all of that on record and agreed to prior. And I will go through the general protections and unfair dismissal soon as well. So performance and disciplinary. So not always a fun one to go through, but it is very important, can be quite complex. So with performance and disciplinary, as I mentioned, if you do have access to, you know, HR Assured, once a performance issue or a conduct issue comes up within your business, really helpful to be able to call us up, because it can be very complex and each situation is constantly different. So there might be a scenario where you would treat something in a certain manner, and then in a different scenario, it would be a completely different manner in which you'd need to discuss it and go through it. So quite complex, but we're going to go through the basics of it for now. Essentially, performance management and disciplinary, they follow pretty similar processes. It's really towards the end of the process where they do differ. So performance management,
We're losing you, Olivia.
Olivia, we've just lost you.
I think your internet's just gone out.
Yeah. Okie dokie. I'll just give it, while she's getting back online, I'll just go through some of the things that we had that I skipped over before. So just a moment and I'll bring up, sorry, it's asking me to rate Canva. I don't need to do that right.
If anyone has any questions for Olivia too, make sure you put them in the chat so we get a chance to ask her when she comes back on.
Here we go. Yeah, just a reiteration on next week's Connect and Share. It's about some changes in the industry law in relation to the TAP versus ABCRA case. And they'll go into that in more detail next week. The next, wait, there we go. Then that's back to the FOC. So that's that bit more detail on the festival and canoe, festival of kayak in the Kangaroo Valley. Starting today. Yeah. Monday, 20th of June from 3 to 4 p.m. There's a Zoom workshop on single track trail bike riding. So yeah, if you're interested in attending that, send an email to James, whose address is contact@outdoorsnewsouthwalesact.com.au. And the Outdoor Education Awards, which are through Outdoor Education Australia, the entries for them close on the 24th of June. And there's a number of different award categories, including Best Outdoor Education Program, Service, Practitioner, a Fellow, and an Emerging Practitioner. So if there's anybody who really stands out to you in the industry, get onto the Outdoor Education Australia website and vote for them, because every vote counts. And then, of course, the big national NOEC conference, National Outdoor Education Conference, that Outdoors New South Wales and ACT is hosting from the 26th to the 28th of September. And as you all know, it's been a couple of years of postponements, so we're really, really looking forward to it going ahead, 26th to 28th of September up in Lura. So tickets are already on sale, well and truly, and we've got all workshops and activities, and it's going to be really hands-on and really involved and tons of fun. It always is. And I'm sure under Laurie's helm, it's going to be even more fun and engaging than it has been in the past. So really looking forward to that. Yeah, that's right. Which you will. So that's on the Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday in the school holidays in September. And some areas where you can have your say. One of them is through Skills IQ, the Sport and Rec training package, and it's open for feedback at the moment and just for another couple of days. So if you want to submit some feedback, you can see the links there, but I'm sure Laurie will post those links in the chat as well. So you can have your voice on how you'd like the sport, fitness and rec training package to look like in the future. And there's also public consultation, which is for Gardens of Stone plan of management. So it's the plan of management consultation, and that's open till the 5th of July. Oh,
I think that's Jeff's plane that's calling him.
Oh, okay.
Jeffrey, did you want to say something to the Skills IQ? No, he's got him silent.
Yes,
I
did.
Okay.
Can you hear me fine?
Yep, go for it.
Can.
Yep, good. So it's not affecting the outdoor qualifications, but there are some of the generic units that are in the outdoor quals that are under review as a part of the Sport and Rec and Aquatics review. So, and the aquatic stuff and the specific Sport and Rec stuff is getting a lot of review, but those generic units, which will end up impacting outdoor rec and other FAS qualifications, are also being reviewed, and they're not getting a lot of feedback. So really worth looking at those ones, those generic ones.
Okay, thanks for that, Jeffrey. Yep, that's amazing. Good stuff.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Olivia, did you want to share your screen again, though?
Terribly sorry about that, everybody.
It happens. It's all good.
Perks of being online. So I'm assuming I was up to performance. Sorry if it cut out earlier than performance. But I'll jump straight back into it. Thank you for your patience. So yeah, performance and disciplinary processes, I was chatting about how they're quite similar processes. It's really more at the back end of the performance management or the disciplinary that they differ. So essentially a disciplinary procedure would be more of a warning or more of a potential termination if we're getting to that stage, whereas a performance management would focus more on extra training, a performance improvement plan, potentially a buddy system. I would really focus on trying to get that employee up to the standard that they need to be at. Linking back again, this is where it's quite important to have a position description, because your performance improvement plan will highly link towards their position description, their duties, and the standards that you need an employee to meet. So you would link, for example, you may have a receptionist. A receptionist would be required to answer phone calls potentially, make bookings, book in clients, those sort of pieces. If they're not meeting that standard, you would link to the position description of the duties of answering the phone and explain how they need to meet those standards for a performance improvement plan. For legal compliance for these pieces, you do need to issue in a disciplinary procedure 24 hours notice of a written notice before the employee, before the meeting, with the employee. And you also need to outline what's going to be discussed, any allegations that there might be. So if there's allegations of them coming in late to work, or, even potentially if there are allegations of some sort of misconduct within the workplace, those sort of pieces, you need to raise it with them prior so that they have the chance to respond to those allegations. I like to refer it to as, I suppose, that innocent before proven guilty sort of piece for employment law. You need to make sure that they have that standpoint in that meeting space and a safe space where they feel like they can, rebut any allegations that have been brought forward for them. With that as well, you do need to offer for them to bring in a support person. With this support person role, it really is someone that's there for the employee if they do feel, potentially overwhelmed, or if they feel as though anything is maybe too much for them within that meeting. And it's someone to have their back, essentially. Generally speaking, a support person won't speak throughout the meeting or make commentary. It will just be someone to help the person, the employee, just in case they do need any assistance at all. Just because these meetings can be quite distressing at times potentially, but if they do reach a stage where they are quite distressing or potentially too much for the employee, I would always suggest finishing the meeting up, making sure the support person has the right facilities and areas to look after the employee, and going there from there. So, serious misconduct. So this can be another sort of performance piece, can lead to termination immediately. However, sometimes businesses can jump straight to dismissals for serious misconduct. It is quite niche or a small area of what can be termination for serious misconduct. So if we're looking into it a little bit more, the Fair Work regulations kind of give us some definitions of what serious misconduct are, and the threshold's actually quite high in which it would be immediate dismissal. What we'd be looking at for these sort of pieces are fraud, assault, theft, potentially bullying and harassment claims, depending on the severity of them. As opposed to, bad language used within the business, lateness, underperformance, those sort of pieces, they would not be serious misconduct. So just making sure if you're looking at serious misconduct, it is quite a high threshold, and the employee may be eligible for unfair dismissal if they are wrongly terminated on serious misconduct. So something to really look into and have some forethought within the business if you are looking at serious misconduct. Again, linking back to those policies and procedures, as well as your contract. In a contract template, you would generally outline the details of serious misconduct, when you're able to terminate, as well as if they're in breach of their employee handbook in terms of fraud, assault, theft, those sort of pieces, you'd be able to link back to those for termination as well. So again, something to look at as to why those are important. Linking back to those 24 hours notice prior, the support person, allegations also, when you are going through dismissal, you will need to go through an investigation process first. Again, back to that innocent until proven guilty portion, you will need to give the employees a chance to respond to the allegations within a meeting. Again, 24 hours notice before the meeting, support person offered, and decide as to whether those allegations are either substantiated or not substantiated before issuing any warnings or any termination prior. So you will need to make sure you go through that investigation process first and foremost before any dismissal or performance management at any process. Because you do need to make sure that you're going through all those meetings as well without an intention of bias or without a predetermined outcome as well. So into the general protections portion, these are basically some of the risks a business can look at. And I think when businesses are going through HR and employment law practices, these are things that really can be quite serious in nature. And they're definitely the things that are on the forefront of businesses' thoughts when they're going through these processes. The last thing you want, obviously, is to go through an unfair dismissal claim, but they do happen and they can be quite common. So just something to run through in terms of the basics of this and what those risks can mean. So again, linking back to those 15 or more employees within a business, if you are outside of that 15 or more scope, essentially employees can and are entitled to go to the Fair Work Ombudsman if they're dismissed in ways that they feel are harsh, unjust, or unreasonable, and they can make through unfair dismissal claims. The Fair Work will then go through the process of investigating that and make a decision on the basis of whether it is harsh or unjust, and they will make that decision based on all the evidence that they have in front of them. So again, linking back to policies and procedures and contracts as well, if you have all of those records, if you have a lot of those pieces in front of them when they do go through a process, it will make it a lot easier for them and for yourselves to have those already there and to have the reasonings behind your decisions all properly mapped out within a process. So that's sort of where it does assist in terms of legal compliance as well. Following a dismissal, the employees do have 21 days to make a claim through the Fair Work Commission. So quite a short time frame in between. So just keeping that in mind. And damages are capped for unfair dismissal at 26 weeks of pay. So keeping that one in mind as well as to what the risk may be in terms of unfair dismissal. And the businesses may be ordered to reinstate the employees if that's something the employee would like to have as part of their damages. Linking back to, unfair dismissals. Casuals are also a type of employee that don't have eligibility to unfair dismissal, as well as contractors also. So it would be mainly those permanent employees that would have access to that entitlement. So general protections, these are available to all employees. So whether you're casual, permanent, whatever you may be, general protections is an option you may take. So I think when we're looking back, a lot of people or businesses will think, okay, we don't have as much risk with casuals in terms of those claims that they may bring forward. Yes, in terms of unfair dismissal, but we do always have this general protections option for the employees as well. So really something to think about if you are going through a termination process with a casual. You may not be as protected as you might think you are, and there are risks associated with terminating a casual. So in terms of general protections, essentially it means that an entitlement's been taken away from the employee. An example I really like to use for general protections is, let's say I am an employee, I take a month off because I've broken my leg, and then my employer decides to terminate me because I won't be able to work for that month period and I need that sick leave to wait for my leg to heal. If that was the case that I was terminated in that process and for that reason, or there's a correlation between the termination and the injury that I've sustained, there would be eligibility for me to claim through a general protections claim. That's just one of them. They do link back to those national employment standards that I spoke about earlier. So those 11 national employment standards. So essentially those entitlements within the 11 national employment standards, if one of those is taken away for myself, or there's a correlation, I was terminated because in relation to those entitlements, that's where a general protections claim would come through. So again, regardless of the employment type, length of employment, employees all do have access to these. The other risk with general protection is the damages are uncapped. So there isn't a maximum that the Fair Work Ombudsman can issue. They can essentially issue a fine or some sort of damages, which are based on realistically their own decision and determination. So it can be based on how harsh and unjust the ruling is to be found. So really something to keep on your mind, because you know you don't know the risk and you're not aware of how much they may find. So something to keep on your mind in terms of damages for that, because there isn't a risk available that you can link to. So that's pretty much me in terms of the basics. There was a lot there, and apologies for the break in that, but maybe it broke up my voice a little bit too. But linking back to HR Assured and our services, all these pieces here are available to you if you do sign up to us. Again, as I was going through a lot of those complexities, the things that businesses always say that they really enjoy about HR Assured is that if they've got a complex case in terms of the performance management or disciplinary, they can give us a call and we'll run through it all. And there's also within our HRA Cloud steps and guidelines and documents and templates which you can utilise.
Olivia, you got a couple of questions there. Did you want to address those in the...
Oh, apologies. Yes, again, I'll quickly just go through this and then we'll go through our questions. So just really quickly, we do have a free consultation for you guys. If you use the little barcode or QR code, everyone should be used to the QR codes by now. Essentially, you can call through and ask any questions you might have. Compliance, we do a little bit of an audit for your company as well. So just a bit of an introduction really into HR Assured and our services, and you'll be able to receive that detailed report in your inbox after the assessment. So just something you might want to utilise in terms of that. So please feel free to use the health check whenever you'd like. There's no real obligations with it as well. So if you want to test it out, you know, why not really? It's free. Alrighty, questions?
David Gregory, did you want to go first?
Yep, working out how to unmute. Yeah, so just in terms of the contractors and superannuation. So, for example, I employ contractors to do specific training days where I pay them through an ABN, and I just how do we make sense of that need to provide that superannuation payment as well as part of that?
I have a feeling we've lost Olivia again.
I've broken the screen with the question.
That's how much she didn't like that question, Netta. She'll come back in a minute.
And while we're waiting for Olivia, I'll just go back to just where we were finishing off before. So another place where you can have your say is the small business strategy. And that closes really soon on the 19th of June. And that's just to inform the strategy for the government in how to best support and recharge small businesses. What else have we got? There we go. And back to those QR codes for Navi, for the free health check and the 30-day social media program, which is going to be amazing. I can't, is Olivia back on yet?
Not yet.
No, that's all
Um,
right. Oh, there she is. Nope, she's
It's
back
coming
on.
back in. Yeah, well done.
Just connecting. So I'll just stop sharing.
Sorry,
You
guys.
didn't like that question, Olivia?
Seems that way. Sorry. Our power actually just turned off. So I think it might be something to do with that.
cool.
So I'm so sorry. What was that? Contractors. So
Yeah.
contractors, I did mention obviously briefly that super piece. It's quite complex, to be honest, and with these ones we always do suggest that you consult with an accountant in terms of those pieces, because some contractors won't be eligible for super, a majority are, but the ATO changes are quite complex following the new legislation. So I'd suggest with those ABN ones that you go through either the ATO for their they've got a calculator, or through an accountant, unfortunately. Sorry. I know that's probably not the answer you're looking for, but that's my suggestion.
Olivia, just to follow up on that one, it's to do with the percentage of their income that they get from you, isn't it? About whether they're actually a contractor that's really replacing employees. So if it was a contractor who was just another business that does a bit of work for your business, generally it wouldn't be seen as attracting the super. Am I getting that right? I might have broken it again.
She's not having much luck.
No.
But you're right, Dom, that is the case. It goes on as far as I'm aware, and actually I'll put the link in the chat for everyone. It's based on the amount of percentage that contractor is getting from that one employer.
Yeah, that would make more sense, because if you're contracting someone through their business, you would expect they're paying their super. If you contract them for 3 days in the year,
Yes.
that should be figured into your fee that they're charging you. But yeah, fair enough. If they're working for you for 60% of their workload, yeah, that would, it's definitely a different situation.
Yeah.
I think the changes were about trying to crack down on sham contracting. That's what
Correct.
I'm pretty sure that's where that came from. And yeah, the difference is where it's a genuine business to business relationship, I think.
That's
which can be very complex, as Olivia started to say.
That's right.
Surely the ATO wouldn't build something that's complex.
Surely not. But that link hopefully will provide you quite a bit there.
Okay.
I know.
Well, should we wrap up?
Well, Hugh's got a question which I know he wanted to pose to Olivia. So Hugh, what I might do is send that to Olivia separately and get a response from her on that, and we'll circulate that to everyone.
Thanks for that, Laurie.
No worries. She's obviously having a bit of a challenge.
No power. Yeah. So we turn the recording off, and thanks everyone who's